good, girl?
What's up?
Hey, are you a sorority girl?
No, I'm a Delta.
Thought Delta was sorority.
No, Delta is the difference between what sorority girl was and what one is now.
Oh,
Do you want to get a drink?
I can't. This might be my last stream. All right, we're developing locally today because I want to run some experiments that I don't think I can really reasonably run in parallel without creating a lot of work for myself on the live server. So one of the things I want to explore is Immer. And according to this, I'm supposed to be able to just grab Immer from JSDeliver. So let's try that. I'll open up our main layout EJS. Remember, in Pocket Pages, you can have layouts. And this is the main layout that is loaded for all pages that display. You can see we're loading Alpine, we're loading JDenticon, we're loading the PocketBased client, and now we're loading Immer. And I'm curious whether that will work. See, this is what puzzles me about Immer, is they say to use this, but this documentation seems out of date. I'm curious if there's a GitHub issue. The Immer instructions say you can just include the script tag, but this script tag includes the Node CommonJS version, and it references process. So like this is clearly the version that's supposed to run in a Node environment, not in a browser environment, yet they're showing it here in the script tag. So I'm curious if there might be an open issue here. So I found this issue on the Immer GitHub, issue 1141, and it's talking about the exact error that we're getting. It's asking, please remove process.env.node.env from dist Immer.js, Immer.mjs. The issue here is when you run Immer in the browser, process is not defined. Now this guy, Mark Erickson, he says that you're supposed to be loading the MJS version of it, but that is not the default version. Let's go to JSDeliver and take a look at what's going on. So the default version is the CJS version. I think that's because package.json doesn't have a browser directive. It has a source directive, a types directive, but it has no browser directive. Types import require main module. It has all those directives in the package.json, but it doesn't have a browser directive. And I think that's why JSDeliver is defaulting to a CJS file. I suppose I could try going for this MJS file, but it references process env as well. So I already know this MJS file will not work. I'm looking in the dist folder of Immer, and I see a CJS file. Here's legacy ESM, but MJS and CJS won't work. What is ESM? Well, this one is no better. It's got process env in here as well. So let's go back to version 9 and see what's going on with version 9. So Immer has a UMD module in version 9, and that UMD module seems to have been dropped in version 10. That's not super confidence inspiring to me that the only working version is a version well behind their current releases. I'm going to look in their repo a little better now, because now I'm understanding that they dropped UMD support, and that seems, yeah, V10 breaks ESM support. So what's going on? I'm looking through the issues here to see if I can find the explanation of why they dropped UMD builds. As of version 10, there is no longer a UMD build. Thanks to Mark Erickson is the guy that I was just going to ask the question to. Switching build tooling to TS up and modernizing JS build artifacts. This PR is on top of Immer 10. Switches the build setup to TS up. This combo appears to work. So it seems like there's no longer the ability to just include this in the browser. It has to go through a bundler. Look at the code of this PR. I'm going to add a note in issue 1032 here, because this is the one where UMD support was dropped, and I'm going to ask them if they meant to do this. In the meantime, I'm not comfortable proceeding with using Immer because I really don't want to use a browser bundler. So now I'm wondering if there's an Immer clone. Here's one called Mutative that says it's 10x faster than Immer. Of course, there's no link to it. I mean, it's been updated recently. Let's check out if it has a patch feature. It says support for JSON patch, full compliance with the JSON patch specification. Right now we're using a custom patch specification for Kingdom. Enable patches. All right, so let's see if unpackage Mutative works. See what that gives us. I'm going to add the script to the index page and see if it, and indeed it does. So I'm seeing a bunch of errors in the console that are distracting me a little bit from the debugging that we're trying to do. And I think it's coming from the default room state. I think it's missing a prize element. Cleaned it up. I dehoisted? What do you call that? What do you call it where you're drilling it down? I only include the battle module if we're calling the calculate war results. Hopefully that'll be a little more efficient anyway. The problem was that middleware was loading advanced.js. Remember, middleware in Pocket Pages will run for every request that route level or below. So middleware was calling the advanced library, and advanced was importing battle. Battle's the one we're working on. It has some errors in it right now because Immer's not available anymore. And it was requiring that one even if it wasn't actually using it. So back to the home page here. I just wanted to try the mutative script. So let's check it out here. Better immutability. We'll get started. Let's just try a mutative example here. All right, so for the UMD, it says mutative is not defined. Loading from a CDN, unpackaged mutative, that's fine. Usages, I wonder if it might be capitalized or something. Yeah, I think it's a capital M. Let's try it in the console here. Yeah, mutative is a capital M. So we can go back here to index.ejs and use a capital M here, mutative. Now it says that next state worked out. I just reloaded the page and it console logged the next state that we used with mutative. So now let's go back into the mutative doc and look at patches. So according to this, you just follow the mutative documentation about patches and it says you can add a third options parameter to mutative.create, which says enable patches is true. And if you set that flag, it will return a tuple of next state, patches, and inverse patches. So let's print all of those, console log all of those, and see what happens. So for patches, it says that it replaced list element number 2 with done. Sorry, it replaced list element number 2 attribute done with the value true, and it added list element number 3. That seems promising. I want to start the state with a room state so it's a little more familiar to me for testing. So my starting state is now a default room state, and I want to test out a couple things here. One thing I want to test out is if I set an attribute twice, if I modify an attribute twice inside the mutation, what happens to it? Let's find out. So it only created one patch, even if I modify the attribute twice. That's good. But now, what if I assign a new object completely? Is it smart enough to know that that strength patch has been invalidated by a higher level object? And it is smart enough to know that. Now, if I reverse the mutations and I assign the new grid cell first, and then I assign the strength, it should produce 2 patches. Let's see if it does. Oh, it's even smarter than that. It reduces it to a single JSON patch with both elements in it. Oh, this is fantastic. Guys, this is fantastic. Brian, what are you saying? Yeah, I do need some kind of chat ping notification. All right, let's check in on the chats. Brian, the MJS will not work. If you go look at the source code of that MJS, it still is referencing the process environment variable. And yeah, I do need chat notifications somehow. Mihai, you're saying hello back to you. Yeah, change my import. I'm not sure I'm following you there, Brian. I'm not using any imports. So version 10 of Immer does work inside Goja, but as far as I can tell, you can't load version 10 of Immer in the browser unless you go through a bundling tool. So I'm not sure why they did that, but if you look, there's no package or module that works in the browser with version 10, unless I'm confused, but this one looks like it's working for us anyway here. Yeah, Mutative, I'm liking it a lot. So let's do this. We need to grab Mutative here. Just grab this UMD and let's see if this UMD loads into Goja. Okay, there we go. Mutative. Now if I go into Battle.js here and I require Mutative instead of Immer, I'm curious if that's going to blow anything up when the page tries to load. Okay, it says syntax error. Oh yeah, the source map thing. Goja doesn't like it when the source map directive is missing. So I'm just going to take it out. Blip, it loaded. That's beautiful. Yeah, Immer production MJS. That doesn't work in the browser though. I'll just real quick, Brian. I'll show it to you. Let's go JS deliver. Go here to Immer. Watch this, Brian. If you're still watching, here are all the file options we have. Here's dist. So we have this one called production.mjs. That's the one you're talking about, right? Oh, this one doesn't have process in it. You might be right after all, Brian. My mistake. I thought I already looked at this one, and I thought that it didn't work. What was I looking at then? Hold on here. You might be right, because I would rather use Immer instead of Mutative if possible, because, it's like, okay, why does production MJS work, but MJS, this is the one I looked at, process.env. So this MJS would not work, but production MJS might work. Let's see what happens is that really all of Immer? That seems like really small. Yeah, you think I found a better solution anyway? It's possible. Yeah, right. I was looking at Immer. You ought to just come on the stream with me, Brian. We'll pair program together. That seems a lot safer. You could save me a lot of time. I really enjoyed our stream the other day. I learned so much from you. So thanks for that. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Right. Maybe I'll just stay with Mutative here. It seems to be working for our purposes. So anyway, the experiment that I'm trying to figure out today is right now, if you look at Battle.js, if you look at the change results, see, I'm constructing my own Delta. Instead of using a JSON patch, I'm constructing my own Delta structure here. And it's starting to fatigue. It's getting harder and harder to manage and to track like which state changes are allowed and things like that. And I'm noticing that in the JSON patches, I can do the same kind of sanitization, like inside this patch array, I can inspect the path and what has changed. Ooh, actually, yeah, see, I don't know if this is going to work because there are certain fields that are public and there are certain fields that are protected, meaning only the user that owns that cell should be able to see that field value. And then there are certain fields that are private, meaning nobody but the game engine can see it. So they're mixed together. And if it produces a patch where public, protected, and private fields are mixed together, it's going to be difficult for me to sanitize that. Right. So what should I do? Well, one way I can fix this is by making sure that trying to pair program through chat. Yeah, exactly. You know what though? If I got a second monitor over here with the chat up, at least I could like see and get notifications. That would probably work better too. We'll work it all out. Right. So going back to my experiment here, I'm just playing around in the homepage right now, just console logging some stuff. So what I'm seeing here is if I assign a new grid object, that's going to be a problem for us. But if I say player ID equals 2 like that and strength equals 20, let's see if that produces two separate patches. I hope it does, but it may just be too smart for us. So yeah, it did produce two patches. So this I could run through a sanitizer. I could say everybody gets to know the player ID, everybody gets to know the strength. But for example, and everybody gets to know attacked by, that's fine. But not everybody gets to know the health, the player health, or the grid health. So each individual grid cell has a health, and then the players have health too. Let's see what happens when I modify, like what happens if I do if I say players2 equals an empty object, and then I say players2.health equals 50. I wonder if it will consolidate those or what it will do. Okay, so added player2, yeah, with a health value of 50. Hold on, let's change this. These are a little too similar. That or a tablet off to the side. I couldn't work without it. Yeah, man, I went through the whole 2-screen, 3-screen. I had like a command central for a while, and then I shrunk it all down. For a while I was doing MacBook Air. I was on a little 13-inch screen, and I've kind of settled on a laptop with one screen. I'm pretty fast at switching back and forth between contexts, but you're right. I could even just open my phone here to monitor the chats. I wonder what that would do. Like, do I have to use up bandwidth watching my own stream just to see the chats? I bet there's some kind of like YouTube console thing where you can see live chats. I can look into that. Unless you guys know how to do it. You guys have known a lot of shit I don't know. So counting on you. All right. So yeah. So if I create a new object and then I assign a property to it, it merges those two operations into one patch. That could be a little problematic. Everything else, if you modify a property of an existing object, it will produce a separate patch for each of those. That is easily sanitized. It's not so easily sanitized when you create a new object. You might have to do that actually as a separate mutation and merge all those patches together into a single array. And that wouldn't be terrible either. So it seems like I might just need to find some kung fu where I make sure that it's generating all of the patches that I need in a way that they can be sanitized, because basically to sanitize these, I need to know the entire path. Like I need to know that for grid cells, player ID is public, strength is public, attacked by is public, health is private. Sorry, health is protected. Health gets communicated only to the person who owns that cell. The player who owns that cell. And then I have to make sure that it doesn't leak any empty data, which it was doing before. Like I could tell just by looking at the real-time stream, I could tell how many times somebody was clicking on a given cell, even though I didn't know the exact health. It was still sending like a no-op through the real-time stream, so I could see that activity was happening, and I want to eliminate that. So this seems pretty good. So I'm going to go back into Battle.js here and update this. So this is now going to be, it's just called patch from Mutative, I think, right? Oh, it's called create. It's called create. So I'll go in here. This is called create. And then down here in Mutative, this is called create. I have my next state and my patches. And then down at the bottom here, it's enable patches is true. So that should shore up the battle code. In yesterday's episode, I went through this battle code and made sure that it was working properly. Probably going to need to review this again. Maybe I can focus on this for today. This might be a good place for us to focus. I want to save this room state right here because the grid is completely full. I'm just going to save this whole room state locally. Okay. Yeah. We're getting somewhere now. So when it advances, this whole thing needs to be rewritten. This advanced.js, this is the logic that advances from one game state to the next. And we need to use mutative instead, which means refactoring all these deferred pushes and everything. So let's hack on this. The game has 3 phases per round: placement, assignment, and war. And it advances from one to the next with certain logic, but I think this whole thing is going to be vastly simplified with mutative. So let's pull in mutative. Somehow Cloud hears my cries, and it's amazing. How did it know that I wanted to do that? It's great. By the way, guys, this dude up here, Daniel, he offered to start doing some editing for the show right up here. I've been watching your PocketBased series, and it has very interesting content. Thank you, dude. I get up in my head about whether I'm doing it write for other people, and I always come back to the same grounded place, which is I'm going to have fun. I'm going to make stuff that I think is interesting, and I hope it's interesting to other people. So I'm glad that that's connecting with you. But he says, would you be interested in having an editor? And hell yeah, I would be interested in having an editor. I want to make sure that nothing gets on the critical path where I'm blocked from shipping the next episode, because I'll just keep streaming every day. But I had this sort of realization the other day, and it's funny, Daniel, that you came along just after this realization. I was sort of drowning in post-production stuff, editing, trying to pull clips out, trying to farm shorts from the clips and do all this stuff, come up with keywords and descriptions and time codes. And, it was like overwhelming me. And I realized, you know what? I can produce the source content and I can let the internet curate it. And that was really a load off my mind, because it means that I can just focus on this content here and making this as accessible as I can. And then people like Daniel can come in and pull out the parts that he thinks are interesting, maybe make clips out of it or do whatever. Because I can take us as far as doing the live stream and just having that VOD out there, and then compressing the live stream down to an episode where all the silence is removed and stuff like that. And I can get that process working as well as the essential and critical skit at the beginning of each episode about why it might be this guy's last stream. So I can do all of that. I feel that is achievable and maintainable, but the rest of the curating and organizing, yeah, I'd be so glad to have some help with that. So let's go through this advanced function. So here is middleware again. And this is what happens is anytime a user makes a request to the application, this is, by the way, this is a poor man's substitute for the fact that cannot in Goja, in the JSVM, I cannot just run a continual loop, like an event loop that advances the game state by itself. I can't run a background process in the JSVM. It's all done either on a cron cycle, which I think is only every minute, or it's on a route or middleware such that anytime a request comes in, it has a chance to evaluate and advance the game state. The game state advances either based on a timer or on the user changing something on the game board. So both of those things will cause the state to advance, but I don't have a way to watch for a timer and get a callback precisely. Like I said, PocketBased supports cron, but that is not enough for our purposes here. Let's just briefly look over at cron and I'll show you why. It's about the cron intervals that are available, but I can see right here it only goes down to the minute, not the second, and I know that's how cron works. So cron is not accurate enough. If I had something that could be called like every 1 second or something, or if I had some way to do like a precision trigger where some of my code got called at exactly the millisecond TTL that the round was supposed to change to a different phase, I would use that. But those features aren't available, so we're doing kind of a kludgy workaround where anytime a request comes in, it evaluates first whether the game state needs to be advanced. And so here's what it does. It calls advance potentially with a user ID. Whatever the auth ID is for this user, it calls advance for that. And then inside the advance code, it attempts to figure out, number one, if the current step in the round has expired and any other checks it might need to do. And it boils it down to, given this room state, should we advance the game? So we grab the current room state, and then if and only if we should advance the game, we go through and run something in a transaction. The first thing I'm going to do is take an early return here to clean up some of the nesting. So in other words, if we should not advance the game state, let's just sanitize the room and return it to the user. That's one little cleanup that we can do here. It doesn't really change the logic of the code, but I really prefer early returns. It takes out the deep nesting. I've seen people use deep nesting effectively, but I still, even after all the soul searching, I come back to my programming style. I prefer those early returns. Some people like seeing all the nested conditions that might lead down a certain path, and I understand the value of that. Especially, it's great for logging because you can, at every nested level, you can do an else and log the exception if it doesn't happen the way you thought it should. And you can do that here as well. I don't know, I just prefer reading straight down the code if I can. Anyway, if we should advance the game state, then we are here. So we run inside a transaction. We start a transaction, and this might be actually a good little aside for us. To execute multiple queries in a transaction, use run in transaction. The DB operations are persisted only if the transaction completes without throwing an error. It's safe to nest run in transaction calls as long as you use the callbacks argument. Inside the transaction, functions always use, okay. I'm looking for, we allow only a single writer transaction at a time. Yes. So to avoid performance issues, try minimizing slow, long-running tasks, such as sending emails as part of the transaction. Right. So this is what I was looking for. We allow only a single writer transaction at a time. That means everybody's waiting. Everybody's waiting when a transaction starts. But what's not clear to me is whether others can continue reading from the database at the same time. We might have to go down into SQLite transactions. So there, it's the first line. When a transaction is open, no reads or writes. Oh, no, I see what they're saying. They're saying everything is a read write. Okay, any command that accesses the database will automatically start a transaction if it's not already in effect. Automatically started transactions are committed. Okay, transactions can be started okay, read transactions versus write transactions. SQLite supports multiple simultaneous read transactions coming from separate database connections. Oh, separate database connections. Well, I don't know if PocketBased maintains separate database connections, but only one simultaneous write transaction. A read transaction can be used for reading only. A write transaction allows both reading and writing. Okay, if a write statement occurs while a read transaction is active, then the read transaction is upgraded to a write transaction if possible. Okay. If some other database connection has already modified the database or is already in the process of modifying the database, then upgrading to a write transaction is not possible, and the write statement will fail with SQLite busy, SQLite busy. Okay, deferred, immediate, and exclusive transactions. Deferred means the transaction is not actually started until the database is first accessed, right? Immediate causes the database connection to start a new write immediately. And exclusive, they're the same in wall mode, and PocketBased uses wall mode. So I wonder if we use deferred or immediate transaction. We could look at the source code and find out. Might be interesting. Searching the code for, here we go, run in transaction. Let's see where this might be referenced. Batch transaction. Let's find run transaction. Okay, here's a function called run in transaction. Oh, we're just back to this again. I need to find the implementation. I do see a keyword immediate here. Let's see if any of that has to do with, it doesn't. Well, we could search the code more. Maybe we'll flag that mystery for now. But here's what we know. We know that PocketBased will only let one transaction run at a time. So once we're inside the transaction, we get the new room state. We fetch it again because it could have changed from outside to inside the transaction. So we call get room state again. We evaluate once again if we should advance the game state. And if we should not advance the game state, we bail out of the transaction immediately. Now we get into the room state steps and handling each one. And this is where I think we need to mutate the room state. So let's simplify this code quite a bit. We'll say const next room state patches, and we'll create draft here, and we'll say enable patches. Okay, we've created the mutation handler. Now we're going to move this entire switch statement inside that mutation handler, and then we're going to take this step by step. So if we're in the placement phase and it's time to advance the game, then we want to say draft.step equals assignment, and draft.step started at equals now, and draft step TTL equals the assignment phases TTL, because we have the ability for rooms to have different TTLs for different phases. That's something that can be customized down the road. Now that's all that happens for that one. In the assignment phase, we have advancement to war, and we calculate the battles. And then in the war phase, we got to go down and pull this logic in. If the draft round number is greater than the maximum number of rounds, we move to the end step. We remove all the battles. We remove all of the... We'll probably have to go through this logic later. Otherwise, we say draft step equals, we go back to placement, we increment the round number, we set the TTL, and then we iterate through the grid cells and we reset every attacked by grid cell. And we'll have to see if the patch is smart enough that if one empty array is replaced with another empty array, if it recognizes that there's no diff there. So anyway, we will continue on by awarding the new number of shards per round to each player. And then for each battle, we're going to basically apply the patch for the battle. Yeah, so let's go back to patching and let's see how to apply patches. Okay, so we have a function named apply. So let's go back up to Mutative here, import apply, and then down in the war state, transitioning back into the placement state, we loop through each battle and we apply. I don't know if you're supposed to apply to a draft. I don't think you're supposed to apply patches to a draft. So if the war round is over, we want to apply all the battle patches. And then if the game is over, it goes to an end state. So we apply all the battles, we clear the battles array, we clear the attacked by arrays because nobody's attacking anymore. And then if the round is over and the game is over, we advance to the end state. Otherwise, we advance to the placement state and award extra shards. Yeah, this logic is vastly simplified. Oh, Daniel came up with a little thumbnail idea. I had a collage of ideas, something that included, oh, okay, collage WebP. Let's look at it. Let's see. That's not letting me, maybe I can download it? Can I download it? Yeah, okay. So taking a little break here, Daniel has come up with some thumbnail ideas that he likes better. Yeah, I see. Well, I kind of do like the PocketBased 030 banner at the top. That does feel good to me. Probably, if I'm picking, I would say my pick is this one right here. I like this one a lot. Yeah, let's see. I dig this one. For you guys that are just listening, I'm looking at Collage's episode thumbnails that Daniel made, and he's got one where it has a banner across the top that says PocketBased episode 30, and then kind of front and center is what we're working on. Is it Kingdom? Is it Pocket Pages? Is it Pocket Host? Whatever. And then to the side, on each side of the thumbnail, are the sort of secondary technologies that are in the topic for the episode. So I kind of like that. Yeah. Interesting. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for bringing that up and showing us. Where were we? So I'm curious if there is a way to apply patches to a draft, though, because that would help us here. Create, apply base state, apply state inverse patches. I don't know if it creates a new draft. Let's see if we can determine that real quick, because it'll simplify our logic if we can apply patches to a draft state. So here's apply.ts. So let's see what apply does. It's got the patches. Yep. And then it creates a mutate function, cannot apply patches options to a draft. Oh, if is draft, then it mutates the state given as draft. Otherwise, it creates it. Oh, okay. Yeah, it is smart enough. So you can apply. So then in that case, we're going to simplify this quite a bit, because inside here, we're going to say, oh, is it going to return patches though? No, right, because that's exactly what that meant, was it's like you can't apply patches with options to a draft. Okay, so what are the options for patches? Options, interface options, strict enable patches. Yeah. Okay, all right. So we cannot get the patches out of apply patches. Well, that's no trouble, I guess. So here's what we'll do. We'll say, we'll apply all of the patches. In fact, what I'm going to do here is take this and call it const saved battle patches. We will apply all those, and then we'll say patches push saved battle patches. So this will apply the battle patches, do whatever other room state mutations need to happen, advance the round, award shards, and then it will add all of the battle patches to the current patches that are going to be sent out to people. Yes. So let's try this. We're stacking up a lot of changes here, so we might as well stack up the rest of the changes as well. And the change that we're after, by the way, is that this should not happen. This should destroy cells that have not been active recently. So we're looping all the way back to the beginning here in the episode we started yesterday, where we have this cell state TTL. So let's go into advance here. Now, when it calculates the war results, at the end of calculating the war results, so inside Battle.js here, it calculates all the war results, and it's going to go through each attack. This seems inefficient to me. Do you need the patches for each battle? You do. You need to replay. You need to produce the patches for each battle separately. Yeah, you do. So then what happens here is we have next state and we have patches. We iterate through each battle. We compute the next state by calculating all the damage and doing all the things that we've already looked at in here. And then I think the battles are just, we're pushing the patches, the outcome, if we still even have an outcome. Yeah, VS, damage, outcome, and patches. We want all of those. So VS, damage, patches, and outcome. All right, what are we doing? I lost track there. Got a call that came in. Switch positions here. Let's go over here. Get into the easy chair a little bit. Oh yeah, now I'm ready for more, guys. All right, what are we doing? So, right, we're producing a set of patches for each draft. The dam is computed inside the mutator, and we need to reference it outside the mutator as well. So I think what we need to do here is hoist it out of the mutator and see if Cloud knows how to. Yes, so the damage is the minimum of the attacker index's health and the defender index's health. Attacker cells health and defender cells health. Fair enough. Yep, and then we have the patches. Oh, and it looks like we need to hoist outcome as well. Yeah, because the outcome doesn't change. Okay, outcome has been hoisted. Damage has been hoisted out of the mutator. VS is attacker index and defender index. Yes, so now the only thing that's happened is deltas has been renamed to patches, and that's fine. All right, battle has been updated almost, but the other part of calculating the war results is eliminating the cells where they've been abandoned. So I think what we can do here is, if the VS is just one single index, that can mean that it's just a single cell operation and we just blow up that cell. So check this out. After we've computed all of our battles, we want to open a new mutator, and then inside here, we want to loop through each, and we want to say, let's say const now equals date now. Did you know that sometimes you can just type in English? You can just say like, if cell TTL has expired, and watch what it does. cell TTL is less than now, then we go, oh, okay, wait, we want to say if cell dot player ID, let's do this, if not cell player ID return. So if the cell's not occupied, we don't care, right? Now, if it is occupied and the cell TTL is greater than now, we also return. So here's more of that early return kind of stuff. Okay, now if the cell has expired, we want to set the cell health to 0, set the cell strength to 0. Yeah, we want to reset everything about this cell. Yeah, and we did this weird too. So wait a minute. We want to, through each grid, and inside each grid cell, we want to generate a new set of patches. And then we want to push the self-destruct battle onto the battle's stack. But let's see how to do that. All right. I think we're ready to give this a try, guys. If I remember right, there is, if I just call version EJS right here. So let me just call API version. And I expected some kind of error. Advanced.js line 50, object is not iterable. Let's go back somewhere around line 50. Object is not iterable, but let's back up a few steps here and say, oh, this is interesting. So battle, cell 1, the damage is 0 because the health is 0. It seems to be computing the battle right now. Yeah, and I want to set a really long TTL. And I think in global, I'm going to just, in this cell state, I'm going to call it self-destructs at. And I'm going to use that instead of TTL, self-destructs at. Yeah, so if cell dot self-destructs at is greater than now, or if not self-destructs at. Ooh, wait a minute, had a little bug there. That's why it wasn't producing anything. In the self-destruct mutator, I was referencing the outside loops cell object, not the drafts cell object. So I fixed that. So if I start the game state in the assignment phase and just say the steps started at 0, then it will automatically TTL immediately. So I'm going to go here and save the state, clear my log. Then I'm going to go here and hit API version. That's going to trigger my middleware, which will trigger the state advance. So let's see how that goes. Great, it did a bunch of stuff here. So it computed the battle and it said, okay, VS1, damage 6, outcome 0, but patches is still empty. I think what I want to do just temporarily, instead of restarting this room state over and over again, inside room.js, there's a function here called getRoomState. And I can just have getRoomState temporarily return the whole static room state. So let's go into battle here and look through this again. Patches was empty. Let's find out why patches is empty. Maybe we can do a local variable named patches instead, just to things a little bit. Okay, that didn't make any difference. So why does it not produce any patches even though is enabled? Oh, we have some bad logic here. We were saying if self-destructs at is not defined, to skip it, but actually if self-destruct is not defined, we want to self-destruct. There it created some self-destruct patches. And I think to reduce the delta size, we actually can get away with just blanking out the grid. In fact, deleting the grid cell completely because we're not tracking anything in it. Yeah, so if the operation is to remove a grid cell, that can be public information. Great, so that returns all of the battles. That seems good. Cool. So we're now in the war phase, in the game state advancement. Oh, sorry, we're in the assignment phase. So it changes it to war, sets up the TTL, creates the battles by calculating the war results, and that's it. Now we should have a series of patches at the end. Oh, kind of dumb on these. I forgot to enable patches in the room state advancement. I forgot it on all of them. Now I bet we get some better results. So we have some patches produced where we replace the step with war. We replace the step started at with a value. We replace battles with the entire array of battles. All right. We're getting somewhere. This has been an intensive programming session today. I think I want to let it cool a little bit because I've got all the patches being produced, and then eventually here it does return a room state, and this sanit room state looks like it sanit everything except the battles. No, those battles look sanitized too. So the final step, once we have these patches, is to call apply deltas, and then apply delta. Oh, it does need the room state with apply delta. So apply delta is next state, and apply deltas is gone. Let's eliminate it. Apply deltas completely obsolete. So where's the bit that, push room state delta? Where's that coming from? That's from room. I'm looking for the piece of code that pushes out the room state deltas. So for a given room ID, you create a subscription message. I think I'm going to close down the stream today, guys, because I need a little time to let this percolate. Once we have all of the delta, we need to control which deltas get sent to which listening clients. And that feels like that's going to take a little while to sort out, particularly since the battle delta contain information that is public, protected, and private. This is a good stopping point. I'll see you guys in the next one.